Animals showing emotion can be unexpected. This crying bear mom led the man to her dying cub, but what the bear did later was really shocking. Kyle loved nature as a kid. He would love hiking and watching the animals in the zoo close to his home. He even studied to become a vet. Now he could help animals all the time. It was pretty amazing being able to treat pets and even some larger animals. He even got to go and work with some of the big animals in the zoo that he used to visit as a child. It was a full-circle moment, but working as a vet could also be really difficult. He would get attached to animals that came to him. He saw many of them since they were young, but he couldn't always help all of the animals. There were times when he tried his very best, and then he still lost the patient. He knew that he should probably learn to keep his emotional distance from the animals in his care, but he just couldn't do it. Each time his heart would break if he had a terrible outcome. But then he would see the next patient, and once again he started to care about them just as he has always done for all the animals in his care. Still, after a few years of working as a vet, he realized that he needed somewhere he could go and just rest and recuperate. He enjoyed going out in the city and having fun with his friends, but it wasn't the same as really resting and recharging. When he had a tough time, for that, he needed to get back to the way that he had relaxed as a kid by getting out in nature. There were a few hikes that he could take close to the city, but none were long enough to really relax. His practice was doing well, and he decided that he would reward himself with a tiny cabin in the woods. It didn't have a lot of land connected to it, but it bordered a national park, and that meant that there was plenty of land for him to go for long hikes. And because it was a national park, no one was ever going to build on the land. He would always have his little sanctuary to get out. He could just sit on his porch and look at the birds and the eagles in the sky, or even watch some deer and other animals passing by his home. It was just what he needed. You couldn't hear any cars or other city noises. All he heard were animals and the sounds of nature. He had a particularly long week when he decided to head to the woods. He had just put his weekend bag down in the cabin, pulled off his work gear, and got on hiking boots. Then he grabbed an apple and headed for a walk. As he chewed, he breathed in the fresh air and listened to the sounds of the river in the distance. His heart felt like it had been beating too fast for days, but now it all slowed down, and he could start to think clearly again. He had walked for a while when he spotted a bear in his path. It was some way away, and he knew that he needed to keep his distance, but the bear had other ideas. She came towards him, walking slowly in reverse as to keep an eye on her. Kyle went back in the direction that he came. He knew better than to try and run, but still the bear just kept coming. Then another movement caught Kyle's eye. Next to the bear, a cub came out of the woods. This made the situation a whole lot more dangerous. A mommy bear can be a lot more aggressive than a single bear. He needed to be careful with the bear still coming forward. Kyle knew that retreat wasn't working. He had to try a different approach. Putting his arms up in the air, he made himself big. Kyle made as much noise as possible, stamping his feet and shouting. Hopefully the brown bear would stop coming towards him. But something really strange happened. She didn't act like he would have expected at all. He had some experience caring for the bears at the zoo, and he could see that there was something else wrong. The bear didn't retreat as he would expect her to, and she didn't have any signs of the aggressive behavior he would expect her to have if she was giving chase. It was one of the strangest animal encounters he had ever had. She sat down in the forest. Her baby was climbing all over her, but it almost looked like the bear mother was crying. She looked completely defeated. It touched Kyle's heart. He knew that he was taking a big chance, but he got closer to the bear. Was she injured? It looked like she was desperate, but he had never seen any of the behavior she was showing. Despite his experience, Kyle was in the dark, and he could only go on his instincts and try to figure out what the bear needed. As he was getting closer, the bear got up, but she didn't come towards him. She started walking towards the river, but she looked behind her as if she was asking him to follow. Kyle was so curious about her strange actions that he just had to follow. Besides, it did look like she was asking for help, since helping animals was what he dedicated his entire life to. There was no way that he wouldn't help her if he could. The bear didn't even seem to notice when her baby started running around Kyle and trying to become friends. She was completely focused on her destination. She led him to the river. There, almost in the middle of the river, was a bunch of fishing nets. The bear went up to it. At first, Kyle didn't understand why she was so interested in the nets, but then it started moving. Another baby bear was completely tangled up inside. Every time the water flowed over the net, the baby was submerged. It looked like the bear had tried to pull the nets apart, but with it being such a big tangled mess, she couldn't free her cub. She needed the help of a human to save her baby, and that was what she was so desperately trying to communicate to Kyle. There wasn't a lot of time left. The little bear already wasn't very responsive. He needed to get the cub free. He hadn't brought anything with him at all, definitely no knife to cut the bear cub loose, and there was no time to run back home and get one. By the time he got back, it would be too late to save the little bear. He had to make another plan. Running down the riverbank, he checked out all of the rocks and found one with a sharp and jagged edge. Then he quickly swam to where the little bear was in the water. He cut through the ropes of the fishing nets. It took a while and left his hands bleeding and sore, but he couldn't stop. Finally, there was enough space to get the cub out of the tangled mess. Kyle pulled him out and swam him to the riverbank, the anxious mother close behind. The baby wasn't moving, but Kyle was determined. He started doing compressions, and the baby started to breathe. Exhausted, Kyle sat to one side. The little bear got up on shaky legs and ran to his mother and sibling. The mom hugged him close, and after a while, when she had made sure that he was completely fine, she let him play with his sibling. Then the little family went back into the forest. When Kyle finally got his strength back, he started walking home. He couldn't believe what had just happened. He would probably never see the family again, but he felt really great about it, and he had a great story to tell all of his friends. He got home and took a warm shower. The cub might have been little, but he was still really heavy. Kyle's muscles were on fire, but now he could rest up. The next morning, he was sitting out on his porch with a cup of coffee after his adventurous hike of the previous day. He was quite content to just sit there and relax, but he couldn't believe what happened next. He was shocked when the bear and her cubs came into view. The family had come to visit him. For a long time after that, the mother bear and later the cub that he had saved would come to visit every time he was at his little cabin in the woods. Thank you for watching. Join us again for even more inspiring stories.